what's going on? I am Jamie Dawn, your evolutionary, revolutionary astrologer, bringing you your celestial wisdom. And this is for the week of November 25th through December 1st of 2024. We have a pretty big week in the sense of some mile markers that are happening with Mercury. I've mentioned this before, my radio show. I'm doing little daily quips, if you will, of what you can expect for the day. I call it, you know, that moment when. And also, I mentioned it, I believe, on my previous video about Mercury going retrograde. It's official towards the evening. I'm on Pacific Coast. So towards the evening of November 25th, which is Monday. And we also have a Sagittarius New Moon, and that happens on Saturday the 30th. So we have a little bit of energy that is going to be giving us I'll say, something to play with, especially because we're in Sagittarius season. Happy birthday to all my Sages. My daughter-in-law and my daughter are both Sages. My mother, my grandmother was, my niece. I've got a lot of Sages in my family. So anyways, happy birthday to all the Sages out there. You know how much I love you and your passion and your perspective and the way you're always seeking truth and trying to give out all that knowledge to others if they're willing to listen, even if they're not, you may share anyways. I will say that if you have a real passion for sharing something, this is a great time to do it, even though Mercury will be retrograde. So I'll talk about that. But first, let me give you your card for the week to meditate on and just see. Last week was the Fool. How are you guys doing with that? Did you take some risks? Did you go where angels dare to tread by not overthinking something and just going for it? Did you feel Pluto as it made its transition back into Aquarius? Now it's going to be there for the next 20 years. So we've got some time. Yeah. So just curious how you guys are doing. So, all right. So my lovely deck, my Celtic deck that I love so much. And what do we have here? Okay. That one jumped out. The Six of Wands. Hopefully you can see that. All right. So when we're meditating on the Six of Wands, this is all about, we've hit a milestone this week in particular. And I think this is quite appropriate with Mercury retrograde and this new moon, that we might feel a little more confident, a more self-assured and successful here because we've hit a particular milestone. We haven't finished or completed something just yet, but maybe there's something inside of you that says, this is great. I feel successful at this. Maybe there are challenges along the way that you overcame. It's a great time to stop for a moment, celebrate that. Also, this is where maybe some of you are receiving some sort of public acknowledgement or accolade, something, an award even might be given out during this time. I know, also, it is Thanksgiving here in the United States. My apologies. I don't emphasize Thanksgiving just because I believe every day we should be grateful, right? But we do take time out to recognize each other and to eat lots of food and watch football if that's your thing. For me, I'll be skiing and watching football and eating lots of food. My beloved and I are doing non-traditional Thanksgiving. So however you are observing it, if you do, enjoy. Back to our Six of Wands, but this, and the reason it came in was it's a short week for a lot of people. So you're like, how am I going to get some sort of recognition? It may just be before you go off on your holiday, especially if you're traveling. Keep in mind, Mercury's retrograde. I'm going to give you the do's and don'ts to Mercury retrograde, at least from my view. And the other thing about the Six of Wands, it's a positive time. So really believe in yourself. I was thinking, just the other day that many of us can say, hey, we're replaceable, right? I've had that discussion quite a bit with a lot of my clients. It's like, well, if I'm not here, they'll just replace me. May be true. However, we want to remind ourselves of what we bring to the table, how unique we are, and that, yes, they can replace us, but they won't do it exactly that. Whoever they replace us with won't do it exactly the same way that we do it. So give yourself some credit, enjoy yourself. Yeah, I think about that in our own personal relationships, because that's always up for us, is that, yes, I can be replaced easily by somebody. My beloved can go find somebody else, but he won't be able to find someone like me and what I bring to the table. And so I took a moment to laundry list what I bring to the table when it comes to relationship. And I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit, you know? So I'm going to invite us all to do the same with this Six of Wands. And remember, wands are a fire sign. We're in fiery Sagittarius, and this new moon is also in that fiery energy. So there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of energy behind it, inspiration. We think about fire. Fire is so mesmerizing too, right? And so, again, give yourself over to celebrating, even if it's just something small, celebrate something this week. And yes, Mercury, let's talk about it for a second. Mercury retrograde at 22 degrees Sagittarius starts Monday evening, but we're already feeling some of the themes coming up. I mentioned on my radio show, as well as I believe I may have said something in my previous video about my car, and I had a moment with my car. But guess what? I've decided, and this is, I'm sharing this as a retrograde example. I've decided to schedule an inspection, an overall bumper to bumper inspection of my car with my shop, so that I can be more proactive in the future. Instead of waiting for something to go wrong, I can be proactive, budget accordingly, that sort of thing, and know, okay, maybe in 2 months' time, I'm going to have to replace this or that, whatever. So that's a great Mercury retrograde thing to do. I'm not starting anything new. I'm maintenancing. I'm going back into my past, and I'm saying, clearly my car needs some attention, right? Okay. So all the things associated with Mercury retrograde, we know the re's, the RE, right? So revisit, redo, rejuvenate, you name it, any of those R's. Obviously, when Mercury is retrograde, we become more internal because the planet is closer to the Earth. We're made of the Earth, right? We're made of Earth and stars. And so there's a lot of the internal dialogue that often happens, but also our intuition can be really super heightened. High sensitives, I'm putting this pin on the map for you. It's easier to get triggered inside because you're feeling everything, and it's easy to internalize it. And the invitation, even though it's easy during a Mercury retrograde to misinterpret things, there's broken communication or connections, electronic breakdowns, all those sorts of things. The invitation is to not hold it in, but to share, but do so with someone you feel safe, you can trust. And that also helps you have a little bit of levity in this, a little bit of humor. Sagittarius has a great sense of humor, but of course, Sagittarius energy is also overexpanded, right? So very often there's an expansion of energy that can happen. So things can get over exaggerated, if you will. So the other thing about Mercury retrograde is we are much more prone to putting our foot in our mouth. Yes, we have a tendency to have foot to mouth disease when Mercury is retrograde. And Sagittarius is a very direct, I say abrupt or blunt sign, and saying exactly what's on their mind. And oftentimes there's no filters. And so it's easy to take it personally or to feel hurt by it, that sort of thing. And if you're somebody who holds on to what someone says for a long time, it's easy to do that during a Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. The other thing is, Mercury rules Gemini. So we have the planet of information, communication, connection with Gemini, who loves to flit and float and be and have all these friendships and have all kinds of things going on at a regular basis. Well, it's going to be in the opposite sign of Sagittarius, which loves the abstract. Gemini wants to take all those abstract concepts and put it into something tangible, some details. Also, while Mercury is in Sagittarius, it's going to make a natural square to Virgo, who also likes the devil in the details, right? Well, when you have these tension points of the opposition and a square, there could be a push and pull feel between all these abstract things and philosophizing and all of that. And then the details, it's like, okay, stop talking. Let's start putting this into something tangible. Well, we could find ourselves a little frustrated when it comes to communicating or disseminating what we've learned and what we know to other people, because the retrograde causes that confusion. So we may think that we've put it in a very clear, designed. Teachers are great at this. If you're a really good teacher, you can take all this information and put it in like step by step, or being able to find different perspectives or angles to solve problems, things like that. Well, with Mercury retrograde here, it could feel really frustrating because if you're the quote unquote teacher and you're sharing what you've learned and what you know to other people, they're not quite getting it, no matter which angle you get. And so that can be exhausting and frustrating, right? The pursuit of truth can cause our minds to be all over the place and make our tongues wag a little more with not a lot of grounding. So the way to use this is to ground, to recognize when our minds are all over, or when we're in this philosophical place of like, who's my audience? Will they really get this? Or, I'm making this presentation and maybe I'm going to have to say it over again or present it differently in the future because of this Mercury retrograde time. Because a lot of things with Mercury retrograde have a tendency to have to be redone or revisited. That's the REs, right? So here's my do's and don'ts during this retrograde time. So we've got from November 25th till December 15th, but then we've got shadow. So it's not fully out of shadow until the end of December. But what this does is it allows us to take a theme that showed up and go back to it a few more times and refine it. That's that RE, right? We get a chance to redo it, refine it, reuse it, and maybe it produces something even better than what we originally started with, right? So here's my do's and don'ts. Don't panic don't panic or over exaggerate issues when they come in, but do keep your sense of humor and open-mindedness to change perspectives. Don't make assumptions, but do ask a lot of questions, because we don't want to assume. What does that do? We know what assuming does, right? But if we can ask questions first, and lots of them, and if it's not the right time, that's okay. Don't launch or sign anything new if you can help it. That's if you can help it. If you do have to sign something or buy something new or launch something new, double check. This is the do. Double check things, get a second opinion, get the warranty, because most likely it won't work out exactly the way you want. There'll be glitches, whatever. Don't nitpick your relationships. Please don't pick them apart during a Mercury retrograde, but do revisit certain subject matters if they've been lingering too long, they need wrapped up, or if there's something that you really feel passionate about that needs to be resolved. It's a great time to do it. Don't stop traveling. People are like, oh, I can't travel during Mercury retrograde. Travel away if that's what you want to do, but make sure you leave some spaciousness for delays, for cancellations, for all those things. Keep your sense of humor, right? Because sometimes things become better than you thought. But I know it's the holidays, so people get very upset, consternated, exhausted when there's those delays and cancellations. But again, it can invite a lot of creativity. Don't get too dogmatic about things and drive other people away. Sagittarius can get on their soapbox and get dogmatic. Do stand behind your convictions, though. And remember, it's okay that not everybody agrees with them. See if you can find ways, even if you don't agree to disagree, find ways in which you still can nurture the relationship if that relationship is important. Don't send communications to the wrong person or put something out there that'll later come back and bite you. Please don't put that sexy video up if that's not what you want out into the world and then send it on TikTok, right? Be careful, but do create some space for yourself and before reacting, right? But please don't send communications to the wrong person. That very often happens during a Mercury retrograde and you go, oh shit. Yeah. And then somehow people are losing jobs and relationships are falling apart and all that sort of thing. Please be careful. Okay. Now, the other thing about this week, we have a kite pattern with the Sun, Mars, and the nodes, and a quincunx, which is an inconjunct. It's this irritant kind of aspect with Venus and Jupiter. And the reason I'm pointing this out, this happens on Tuesday, is we're going to have a brief moment as energy is lining up for this, that a kite is a complex configuration and it's formed when one of the planets in a grand trine is also forming an opposition. Well, in this case, the nodes are always forming an opposition to each other, and that's the opposition. And then we have sextiling of Mars and the Sun to the south node. And then we also have the trine of the Sun and Mars. Okay. So hang in there with me. I know I'm giving you some information, languaging, if you will, that you may not be used to. But we're working with trines and sextiles. Those are considered easy aspects. Then we have a little tension of the opposition. And then we have this quincunx, which is like the mosquito in the tent. You hear it, but you can't kill it, kind of thing, you know, and it keeps biting. So anyway, so this irritant that shows up. And the reason I bring this up is the south node's in Libra. Libra's ruled by by Venus. Well, Venus is, like I say, making this quincunx aspect to Jupiter in Gemini. And so we could find that certain conversations or discussions, concepts, all these things that are very Gemini, Sagittarius related can create an irritation or like a food for thought. It can stimulate. It can maybe overstimulate certain things in our mind, but it gives us opportunities to right something that may have been wrong in the past. Now, this is the gift of this, is that we can find ease through the process if we can collaborate with others, that's that South Node in Libra, and gain different aspects, different perspectives. So instead of being stuck in our own ways and our own views of doing things, and we get so, you know, that blinder mentality, if we can collaborate with others, keep an open mind, ask for ideas or ask for new perspectives, then we can approach the themes that pop up now with an open heart, with that Mars in Leo, and we can still stay passionate about the success, but the success is for everybody involved, not just ourselves, not just pushing our own agenda. Then we get to start looking at creating experiences, because Sagittarius loves to have experiences. So we can create experiences that can lead us to more opportunities that can help us manifest what we desire most. So Monday, Tuesday, even Wednesday, after all this dissipates a little bit, good energy, good time for things to evolve and to take place. And then let me just mention the new moon in Sagittarius. I mentioned, it is a fire new moon. So we have a lot of passion and inspiration, but it's a new moon. So it's a dark moon. We become more introspective. So we can reflect on the past. This is the theme, if you will. If you want to utilize setting intentions or what you want to manifest in the next 6 months with the full moon in Sagittarius in June, so over the next 6 months, that you take time to reflect on the past, to learn from it, and then create a brighter future. So it's a great time for reflection. And then being able to, instead of beating ourselves up of like, oh, this is what I did before, how stupid of me. It's more like, okay, lesson learned. Maybe there's a pattern I need to change, or it was just a mistake and I won't do that again. Here are some plans and precautions that I put in place so that that doesn't repeat itself. Spend some time with yourself for what's true for you. What do you truly believe in? What is it that is your conviction, if you will? What's your hill to die on, so to speak? Let that ring out for you. Maybe you need to set some. Maybe you're not really good at setting your boundaries or your must-haves or must-nots. You know, this is a good time for that. And then where can we expand our hearts and our minds more? Maybe we take on a new learning. Maybe it's time to sign up for that course, or it's time to share what we've learned and put that presentation together, step out of our comfort zone a little bit. How can we create a greater experience for ourselves and others? So these are the kind of themes that we'll be working with this new moon. It should be a really positive new moon as well, because it is Sagittarius energy, and Sagittarius is the eternal optimist. All right. I hope that this gives you some nuggets, some pins on the map to be able to navigate the upcoming week. And I really hope that you're liking my daily videos, as well as, you can catch me over at 12listen and jamiedawn.com. And when I am live on 12 Radio on Mondays, I will, if I'm not, I'll try and do a pre-record, but doesn't always happen. But anyways, I so appreciate your love, your support. Please like, subscribe, share, comment on these videos if they're useful to you. And I look forward to connecting with you in the future. Have a wonderful week ahead.